Larger class sizes, new teacher testing for math competence, less selection for high school level courses. The Ontario government has introduced big changes just as teacher unions across the province head into a new round of bargaining with a new partner across the table. What do the teachers hope to achieve? Let's find out. From Harvey Bishchof, he is the president of the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation, and we welcome him for the first time to that chair in our studio. Nice to have you here.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
We're just a couple of weeks into the new school year, 2 or 3 weeks. How's it going so far?
Sitting on my desk at my office right now are literally stacks of stories from my members around the province telling me about student experiences, grade 12 students who can't get access to courses they need to graduate, grade 10 students with spares on their timetables because there are insufficient courses for them to fill a timetable, quadruple stacked courses where you have 4 grade levels in a single class because that's with the loss of staffing. That's what they've had to do to provide those options. So it has been a rocky start to the school year.
Is it that way every year?
Absolutely not. This is unprecedented. Students not being able to get into courses they need to graduate. I mean, has it ever happened? Have to think so. But with the frequency it's happening now, absolutely not. The number of oversized classes that we're hearing about, classes of 35, 40, and even somewhat higher than that, never heard of these things occurring.
Do you have to take into account the fact that this is a relatively new party that's in power? They've been in power for, 15 months now. They were out of power for 15 years. Did they need to get their sea legs and sort of figure things out?
Well, I mean, I guess I take that into account when I see what's happened. I don't think it excuses the fact that they've made policy decisions with, I believe, consequences that even they didn't foresee. We foresaw it when they made the announcement on March the 15th.
For example, what are you talking about?
These oversized classes, the lack of access to courses. This year alone, amongst my membership, so English public high school teachers, over 1,200 teaching positions not filled because the boards aren't funded to fill those positions when people retire. That's over 7,000 course options, classes that aren't available to students. We knew that this was going to occur. We raised the alarm about that, but here we are, and the student experience is just massively diminished because of that.
Is the difficulty that when the head of a teacher union raises these issues, the government of the day, regardless of stripe, says, well, of course you're looking out for your members and you're just worrying about their jobs, and we understand that is your job to do, but that may not actually reflect what's best for the education system.
So I have repeatedly, I make no apologies for looking out for my members. That absolutely
That's
is
your
my
job.
It absolutely is. But my members insist that we look out for high quality publicly funded education in Ontario. In order for me to be responsive to my members and frankly responsive to my own set of beliefs, we need to continue to maintain and build a quality education system in Ontario. And I've been pointing over and over again at every opportunity, every media contact, to the policy, to the impact on students, to the impact on graduation rates and what that might mean to the future economy that our high quality Ontario graduates graduate into. When if graduation rates go down, there will be an economic hit in the future as well. And these are the things that I want to focus on.
Stephen Lecce is the new Minister of Education. He got appointed in that controversial cabinet shuffle that took place a few months ago. He was in that chair not too long ago. I want to play a little clip of what he had to say, and then we'll come back and chat, okay?
Sure.
Mr. Director, if you would.
Last year, for context, for parents at home, the class size average, provincial average, was 22. This September is 22.5, which is 22 plus attrition. We always commit to 22 plus attrition. That's when I say attrition, that includes the $1.5 billion fund we put aside to protect teachers and maintain them, our employment complement in the classroom. But the bottom line is we're effectively maintaining the same as last year. Now, with respect to 2020, and beyond, September of next year and thereafter, we're negotiating in real time. And I've actually called on all partners, trustees associations, and unions in good faith to bring forth innovative ideas within our fiscal authorities to bring those numbers down. So if we can come up with offsets and opportunities to bring the number, I'd like to see that happen. It has to happen at the table. And obviously, as in my capacity as negotiating for the Crown and for the government, I am limited in what I can surmise the outcome will be going forward.
But is the plan to go to 28?
The plan is to negotiate the table and to see those numbers come down through innovative solutions. The unions have said themselves that they want to bring forth ideas.
A couple of things I want to follow up on there. Going from, say, a 22 class average across a board to 22.5 doesn't sound dramatically different. Tell us why you think it is.
Well, it wouldn't be if I have a hard time making sense of the minister's numbers, and this is troubling. If in fact the class size average this year is 22.5, and that equates to a loss of 1,250 teaching positions, then it's going to get 12 times worse than that by the time we get to 28-1. So either things are heading, they're already bad and heading to be catastrophically worse, or that 22.5 number isn't accurate, but there's no way of making those numbers align. So I have some concerns right off the bat.
You heard him say in that interview as well that he wants to work with you, wanted the teacher unions to come forward with their ideas, innovative solutions, I think he called them, in order to help get the government to the policy that it has enunciated. Are you prepared to do that?
So, I have to answer that in a couple of different ways. One is to take on head on that offer and to say that for over a year we have been making suggestions to the government about places where we think money can be found that we believe should be reinvested in the system but may not be put to the best advantage right now. Spending on EQAO where the chair is now a $140,000 a year employee when it used to be a $5,000 position, but the whole structure of EQAO is multi-millions, and we think there's savings to be found there. The bargaining structure is cumbersome and unnecessarily costly. We made suggestions for how that could be streamlined and made more efficient. We've suggested ways to provide an alternative dispute resolution mechanism that would reduce the cost of grievance arbitration, litigation between unions and school boards that we think would be constructive for both sides. And those are not the only ones. And in every case, our suggestions have been ignored or rejected. So
you have had an official rejection of those positions from the Ministry of Education.
We've had certainly, perhaps ignored then is the better answer, because there has been no response. We have done it in writing, we've done it through their official consultations, we've done it through meetings, and none of it has been taken up. So it's hard to feel that the minister is making a good faith offer of wanting to consult with us when our ideas, which we think are valuable, have been entirely ignored.
Just for argument's sake, what's wrong with increasing class sizes?
Well, the science actually on this has become quite settled over the last number of years. I think it wasn't clear for a period of time, but I would point you to one study in particular, Diane Schanzenbach, the National Education Policy Center, 2014 study, which was a meta-study, so it aggregated hundreds of class size studies, demonstrated that there's a virtually linear relationship between smaller class sizes and higher student achievement that works across the grades. And the students who are most positively affected by that reduction in class size and most negatively affected by an increase in class size are kids who are at risk, kids who come from more marginalized backgrounds, kids at the bottom of the socioeconomic spectrum, the very kids we've done such a good job in Ontario of lifting up because we've closed the achievement gap in Ontario over the last 15, 16 years, and we're really proud of that. Those are the kids who will get hit by class size increases. But that's only one aspect of this change in the funded ratio, because the other aspect is you go from 22-1 to 28-1, you lose 1 out of 4 teaching positions in Ontario high schools. Whether those are reduced by attrition or some other means doesn't make any difference to the student sitting in a class that is overcrowded, the student who can't get access to the class that they need. So 1 out of 4 course options, because every teacher position that goes out the door leaves with 6 classes that they previously taught. Over 30,000 classes in Ontario's high schools 3 years down the road from now won't be available to students. So there's 2 aspects to that change in the funding ratio, but increased class sizes by themselves are harmful for kids' educational experience and long-term achievement.
It's interesting you say that, because Michael Fullen, who used to run OISE, the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, who has spent 5 decades studying education policy in the province, and advised the Blair government in the United Kingdom on education policy as well. I remember asking him, if you had $1 billion burning a hole in your pocket and you wanted to do something great for education, would you spend it on making classes smaller? And he said, absolutely not. He said that'd be well down the priority list. And he listed a bunch of other things that he said were more urgent. So I appreciate you have a 2014 study that says you can draw a line between smaller classes and better outcomes. But here's a guy who spent his life studying this, and that's not a priority in his view. How do you explain that?
You know, I point to the 2014 study specifically. It's a particularly large, particularly high-quality study. It stands far from alone. I mean, it is an aggregation, as I said, of hundreds of studies. There was a further 2016 study. Mathis was the author's name. Also, National Education Policy Center points to the same kinds of outcomes. There have been studies done in Israel and Europe and South America. They all point to the same thing. So,
well, Fullen used to say, I get why parents want smaller classes. They feel like Johnny and Janie are getting a better education. But he says the actual nuts and bolts don't suggest that a student would necessarily do worse in a class of 28 versus 22. 40 versus 22, okay, but 28 versus 22, not sure.
And I think that he is behind the science for whatever reason, because as I say, it has become much more of a settled matter.
We're going to hear from him on this. You know.
I have
say
no
he's
doubt.
behind the science. He's going to call in and let us know.
I'd be happy to hear from that, but I've seen no refutation of the high-quality studies that are increasingly pointing in this direction.
Do the studies that you've cited indicate what is the optimum pupil-teacher ratio in order to ensure the best outcomes?
I didn't see that in the things that I've read most recently, to be honest. What it did point to was, as I said, a more or less linear relationship between class size reductions and improvement in student achievement, which include graduation rates and included later in life success as well. So post-secondary graduation, attainment of gainful employment, all of those things. So the effects were long-lasting too.
Well, here's the facts. The government obviously is not filling vacant teaching positions because it's trying to save money. They say we have a deficit that is way too high right now, and they are, you're not going to save very much money buying fewer paper clips for the government. You're going to save money by hiring fewer teachers who make $75,000 a year or more. You get that, right?
I understand that they're making that claim. I understand a couple of other things as well. We just found out last week that the deficit is in fact half of what they were originally claiming, and I've seen no adjustment yet in part of their policy pronouncements. One assumes that they would want to back off on some of those targets, given that we're looking at a deficit that is nowhere near as dire as they had originally claimed.
I think they said $15 billion originally, and we're down around $7 and change now.
Exactly. And additionally, though, if you see education as just an expense, you can perhaps justify the government's approach. But it's clear that education is an investment, and there's a return on that investment. There's a basic economic return, and a Conference Board of Canada study issued in the spring called, it was about investing in education, the case for investing in education, says that for every dollar invested in education, there's a 1.3 multiplier in the broader economy. So a dollar in education produces $1.30 in the broader economy. That's a good return on investment. And on the other side, a $1 reduction in education investment takes $1.30 out of the economy. The other thing is, as you invest in education, they demonstrated the link to higher graduation rates. And as graduation rates go up, expenses that are borne by the public purse, social welfare payments, health care, the judicial system, all of those expenses drop. So you can find short-term savings in education. In the long run, you'll pay more for them than you actually took out even of the system, and it's a case of penny wise, pound foolish, really.
I would say parenthetically, we're sitting here in the William G. Davis studio. He was education minister in the 60s for about 9 years, and he used to say, you get education right, everything else falls into place.
I think there's a lot of truth to that.
However, there's another view out there. This is Brian Lilly, who, full disclosure, writes in the Toronto Sun and is probably no big fan of the unions or their leadership. And he says the following in one of his columns back in April. It may not be the talking points that the teachers' unions want to put out, but teacher salaries have increased while student enrollment and student performance have both fallen. It's time to fix the system. Where were the unions in protesting the failing math curriculum that saw students fall further behind over the last 10 years? They were silent. The unions only came to life once their revenue was threatened, once it became a possibility that they would have fewer dues-paying members. How would you respond to Brian's column?
Mr. Lilly speaks from a remarkable position of ignorance about the activities of the union and the activities of the Ontario education system. First of all, Ontario has one of the best education systems in the world, demonstrated repeatedly by international testing. We stack up amongst the very best and have at times been at the top of the English-speaking world. Additionally, over the last 15 years, graduation rates increased by 20%. And we're now graduating 87% of high school students, and it was 20% lower than that.
Yeah, when I was a kid, it was probably 60 or so.
Absolutely. So 1 in 5 additional students is prepared to take on post-secondary education, prepared to move into a skilled trade, an area that we have a crying need for in Ontario, prepared to contribute to the broader economy in those fashions. So that's simply not true. When it comes to things like the math curriculum, I've publicly expressed that I have concerns about the math curriculum, and one measure of it, the grade 6 EQAO testing, says we should have concerns. There are other measures that temper that concern, I would say. We've long been contributors to the curriculum and policy discussion in Ontario, and governments that are more interested in hearing from stakeholders have consulted with us, and we have repeatedly provided our best contributions that we can and best information and understanding to that policy discussion. So to suggest that my organization and my members are not interested in the quality of education in Ontario is just flagrantly incorrect.
Okay. Harvey, we're down to our last few minutes here, and I just want to get into some quick nuts and bolts with you here. At what point are you going to call for a strike vote at OSSTF?
We haven't yet had substantive bargaining at the table. We haven't exchanged positions yet because of the procedural part of the bargaining process that we've been engaged in so far. So I'm focused on getting to the table, putting proposals on the table that are good for Ontario's students, and hoping we have a willing partner on the other side.
Well, that's my next question. Do you see an openness on the other side to negotiate in good faith with you?
You know, the minister keeps talking about good faith, and in fact, he's rigged the system from the outset. They announced back in March 15th that they're going to slash a quarter of Ontario's teachers over 4 years, and then started announcing, but they can be bargained back. And so he's leveraging student education experience against attempted concessions from collective agreements. While we were sitting at the bargaining table on June the 5th, we heard, not from the representatives of the Crown sitting across the table from us, but via social media, that they had introduced legislation to interfere with our ability to bargain aspects of the collective agreement. That's the opposite of good faith bargaining. So I mean, I have a great deal of trepidation going into substantive bargaining.
You've met him though, right? The Minister of Education?
I had a half-hour meeting with him.
How'd that go?
It was certainly civil. It was, not terribly substantive. There's not a great deal you can do in a half an hour. It was cordial enough, and I'm happy to sit down and talk with him again anytime.
What was your sense of him, though? I mean, he's the youngest Minister of Education ever. Pretty good politician. You know, he communicates well. He's got a lot of experience in politics. Not a lot of experience in the public school system. What did you think of him? Yeah,
I don't think communication is a problem for him. I would agree. I think policy is a problem for him, though, and I would think that a genuine approach to good faith bargaining has eluded him so far.
Have you, teacher union officials, started to consider whether or not you want to withdraw extracurricular participation from the schools in order to press your point?
You know, really what we've been considering is what are we going to put on the bargaining table, and what are the best ways to move forward in ways that are good for students. And I can tell you, I mean, given the government's policies, I think there's a reason why 7 in 10 Ontarians think they're going in the wrong direction when it comes to education. And there's a reason, given their public pronouncements, that 6 in 10 Ontarians think that they're just looking to pick a fight with educators and not really negotiate in good faith in order to come to a deal.
But I do remember 24 years ago in this province seeing 100,000 teachers in the streets protesting the then Mike Harris government's education policy changes. You got any plans for that this time?
Well, we had 30,000 people at Queen's Park in April. We will certainly speak up about the need to maintain a high-quality public-funded education system in Ontario. But our plans right now are to get to the bargaining table and see if our proposals are received in a reasonable way. And if they are, then we're going to move forward in a way that's productive.
We'll stay tuned. Thank you for coming into TVO tonight.
My pleasure.
That's
Thank you.
Harvey Bishchof. He's the president and CEO of the OSSTF. Thanks, Harvey.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.